Joining us right now is Lieutenant Colonel Alan West. And Lieutenant Colonel, it's good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. Critics have slammed the president for making these claims without evidence. Could it be that there was an overall investigation going on of certain Russian bankers or whomever that had conversations with someone at Trump Tower, and that investigation captured some of the phones at Trump Tower without necessarily trying to spy on President Trump?
Well, the problem with all this, and you guys be safe up there in New York with all this storm that is happening, but the problem with all this is that now you have to prove it. And you think about the week, that Saturday when this came out with the tweet from President Trump, it was following a very incredible, a very successful address to the joint session of Congress, when that was the topic of the news, when that was the narrative that you want to lay out, your policy agenda and your vision. And now we see the president just being absolutely nagged to death, because that's what the media will do, with, okay, are we there yet? Are we there yet? That type of mentality that the kids have when you're on that long road trip. And they're going to have to come up with something, or else it's going to damage their credibility. So we're not talking about the health care reform. They're not being asked to talk more about the tax reform, about the economic growth. They're just going to be nagged about this. And so I just don't understand why you would want to purposefully change your own narrative when you just had a very successful event.
Well, one of the things that I've been seeing, and I think it's fascinating because this did change the narrative from one of the most successful speeches that President Trump has ever given to now we're talking about his tweets again. But the thing that is fascinating is underneath this, right, people have all had questions about what is Donald Trump's relationship with Russia. It's sort of haunting him in many ways like Hillary Clinton's emails did. So now the question is, what's really going on there? And it seems like he's taking this by going head on and saying, look, they were doing stuff that was wrong too. Let's take a look and try and shift the blame in some way. So now we're having a different conversation about Russia than they were before. Do you think that that's part of his plan?
Well, I don't know what the real intent of the plan is, and if I were sitting up there in 1600 Pennsylvania, I would have said very simply after that address, I just laid out my policy vision. I just laid about the means by which we're going to turn this economy around, what we're going to do to get Americans back to work, what we're going to do to strengthen our national security. That's what I'm focused on. I'm not focused on these specters and the speculation that people are putting out there. So at some point in time, you have to, put everyone else aside and say that this is what my business is. I think it's time to be the grown-up and be the adult, and that's what we need to have in this country.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Tennessee lawmakers reportedly suing the federal government for its refugee resettlement program. Now, I want to get your take on this, because the suit is arguing that the government violated the 10th Amendment. That states it only has power given to it by the Constitution, and all other powers belong to the states. Tennessee is asking for the government to stop resettling refugees in Tennessee until all costs associated are paid with federal money. Lieutenant Colonel, what do you think about this?
Well, the thing that we have to come to understand, I believe that 49 out of 50 states in the United States of America have to balance their budgets. Unfortunately, we don't have that for the federal government. They just print money and they continue to run deficits and debt. So when you continue to have these individuals that are thrust upon our states, that means that they have to do things different for their budgets, because you have to look at the education impact. You have to look at the Medicaid, the health care impact, and all of the services that these states have to provide. And so what is happening is this big thing, the unfunded liabilities and mandates that the federal government continues to push on the states, and that is a violation of federalism. That is a violation of the 10th Amendment, and the states can't print money like the federal government can.
Yeah, and it's not the only state, actually, that's making noise on this. We want to get your take on this next story, though, Colonel, because, the rapper Snoop Dogg is under fire this morning for a mock assassination of President Trump in a music video. Actually, it's quite disgusting. What's your reaction?
Well, it is disgusting. I mean, when Hillary Clinton talked about the basket of deplorables, when is this going to end? This type of reaction, this violence, this vitriolic reaction to the election of November 2016, the violence we see in the streets. if this were flipped to 8 years ago and this was happening in a different situation and that was a mock-up of President Obama, the media, everyone would be outraged. So I think that Mr. Dogg, he is probably in violation of U.S. statute and code, and he needs to be held accountable for his actions.
So what should be what should happen here then? I mean,
Well,
to do a mock assassination of the president.
Well, no, the Secret Service, the Secret Service should investigate this. They should look into it because it is a violation. And he has the president dressed as a clown.
I mean, look at this video. The president is dressed as a clown. Brian Brandenburg, weigh in here. What do you think?
No, I just think, you know, this is not, he's trying to make a point, obviously, and there are legitimate things we can be talking about from a political perspective.
What's the point? He's got a gun.
But the point is, this is not enlightening, it's not creative, it's not thoughtful, it's just it's blunt, and it's dragging down the conversation in this country. My question for you, Lieutenant Colonel, is how do you respond to this productively? You know, you can call it, it's terrible, it's awful, but what can the president do to change the tone and to really distance himself from this and set a new tone and actually attract people to what he's trying to do?
I think it's very simple. I think that the president should step up and say, you know, I'm going to focus on the fact that only 24% of black children have a mother and father in the home. I'm going to focus on better education opportunities in the inner cities and the urban communities. You know, we just saw the president stand up there and sign an executive order with the historic black colleges and university presidents. That's what he needs to focus on, making sure that we have better education opportunities in college and so that these individuals can graduate from college and go out and have successful and productive lives. So I think that's how he takes this and turns it into a positive.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's what he should be doing, actually, as a rapper, to try to be, you know, a model for young people. That's the kind of stuff he should be talking about, education.
This is
Snoop Dogg.
This is outrageous.
I know.
I mean,
I agree with you.
This is a role model for children. This is...
Well, he says he is anyway.
Well,
well, no,
I don't know if
I don't know about that, but they look at this and they think someday this is, I mean, this is success. This is what you're seeing on the television screens.
He should be ashamed of himself.
He should be absolutely ashamed of himself.
Well,
and if you hate Donald Trump, that's fine. But have a debate. Have a real debate.
Yeah. Alan, thank you so much, sir. Good to see you.
Always a pleasure.
Lieutenant Colonel Alan West joining us there.